Welcome to Programmable, where we talk to tech luminaries to help you with your career. Programmable is brought to you by JDoodle, the AI coding suite for learning and building together. Try our easy-to-use online development environment and you can start coding in 88 programming languages in seconds. I'm Lucas Hakewill, and today we're speaking with Lucy Wang about jobs in cloud computing. Lucy is an ex-AWS solutions architect. Her YouTube channel, Tech with Lucy, has over 150,000 subscribers, and where she helps people launch their own career building on AWS. I'm here to ask Lucy all the juicy questions about what it takes to build a career in cloud computing. Welcome, Lucy.
Hey, Lucas. Thanks for having me on today.
To start with, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So as you mentioned, I run a YouTube channel. It's called Tech with Lucy. And just a bit about myself, though, just taking a step back. I started my cloud journey a few years ago when I started off at Amazon as an intern. And then after that, I worked 2 years as a solutions architect. So helping customers migrate on the cloud, modernize with the cloud, and being that technical advisor for them. My YouTube channel started when I started my job, pretty much, as a solutions architect, where I made videos to help people kind of go through the similar path that I went through, which is, come from something where it's like I didn't do like a cloud computing degree or anything. I had to get my own certifications and so on, helping people upskill and learn about the cloud pretty much from scratch, and then building that roadmap for them to get hired and land a job in the cloud industry or the tech industry. So I've been doing YouTube for 3 years now, but the first 2 years I was doing that alongside my job at AWS. And it's been 1.5 years now of full-time YouTube, and it's just been a really fun journey. I really like how creative it is. And I also really like how I'm able to make an impact on a global audience. I feel very lucky to be in a space where I can push out videos and that can then directly help my subscribers, and slowly I'm growing that community of cloud learners. And happy to talk more about this later, but that's just like a brief intro about what I'm doing at the moment.
Brilliant. You really get to directly impact somebody's early career. What was it that motivated you to start sharing your experience on YouTube?
Yeah, I would say like timing is a big part. I started my job during the pandemic, and so I watched a lot of YouTube just for fun, for my own like entertainment. And there was this one YouTuber who made some videos on how to start a channel and talked about his own journey. And I thought, wow, like I would love to also have a sort of voice on the internet where I can share what I know, or share kind of like the journey of me going through, like whether that be like landing a job in tech or cooking videos and things like that. So like I just really want to make content and share it with the world. Of course, there's a lot of that imposter syndrome. What will people think of me, and like what do I even share about? But I would say that's how I started, just like seeing other YouTubers and getting inspiration from that and be like, wow, I want something like that as well. That sort of initial inspiration turned into more so when I started making videos and building that audience. It turned into like a desire to make an impact and a desire to continue building the community that I had. Because I started off like everyone with 0 subscribers. I was like, what do I make videos on? I made videos talking about my university experience, videos talking about how to pass the AWS cloud certifications. And I just continued to make content on what resonated with the viewers. One quote I really like is that success leaves clues. So that if I have a video that reached 1,000 viewers, whereas another one reached 50, I would more likely want to hone in on the one that reached 1,000 viewers, and then keep making content around that, which is sort of how I fell into that niche of helping people land jobs in the cloud space and help them upskill and learn about those technologies. So yeah, that's sort of what inspired me initially, other YouTubers, but also that sort of, just to summarize, it quickly turned into a desire to make an impact in the cloud community.
And this idea of success leaves clues. You can see whether a particular video is resonating with people really quickly.
Yeah.
What kind of career opportunities are there for people who are thinking about cloud?
Oh, there's so many. I love this question because when people think of cloud computing, they bunch it up into like cybersecurity, coding, software engineering. It's just one of those buzzwords, right? So cloud computing, I think it's quite a big space. It's growing really rapidly, especially with the rise of AI, because artificial intelligence, all of these models, they need to run in the cloud most of the time. Um, tools like, for example, when I worked at AWS, now I've heard of like Amazon Bedrock, Amazon SageMaker, those AI machine learning tools, they need to run on cloud infrastructure. And so like there's always going to be more jobs in the cloud as things like AI rise. And yeah, so pretty much what I'm saying is there's a lot of opportunities out there, but the myth is that you have to be technical. Like I hear a lot, they're like, people are like, oh, I can't code, then I can't get into the cloud, or like I'm not into like techie stuff. But the cloud, I think just with like any other field as well, there's so many different pathways you can go into. You can go into the sales role, which is like helping customers, helping the company bring on more customers to purchase and utilize cloud products. You can be in the traditional software development route where you're helping improve the cloud infrastructure and the cloud software, or you can even be like a solutions architect like I was, which is kind of bridging that gap between the business people and the tech people. And there's also roles in like marketing, HR, like different types. So there's a lot of different roles in the cloud space. The top 3 roles that I really advocate for in my YouTube channel is the cloud support engineer role, which is sort of helping customers with any troubleshooting issues that they have and being that immediate point of contact. I also advocate for the solutions architect role, which is what I was in, and also the cloud architect role, which is kind of implementing solutions and actually building things in the cloud for the customers. So, there's a lot of different jobs out there. Those are the 3 that I really like because I've seen the most job openings, and these 3 are very entry level friendly. There's associate level positions and internships available. So, that's usually what I would say. But definitely, as with everything, like definitely do your research. There's some videos I made on like top 5 cloud careers or like different roles you can do without coding, and I definitely recommend having a watch. Doing a little plug here, but having a watch at on my videos if you're interested in landing a job in the cloud and hearing about the different pathways.
We'll have a link to Lucy's YouTube channel in the show notes. So I'd really love to dive just a little bit deeper into each of those 3 technical roles that you mentioned that are super friendly to early career people. So starting with cloud support engineer, can you paint us a picture of what might a day in the life look like for a cloud support engineer, and what kind of experiences or skills would I need to have in order to go for that kind of associate level role?
Yeah, so a cloud support engineer, day to day, the main responsibility would be helping customers solve their issues through emails, chats, or calls. So anytime a customer runs into an issue, it depends whether you get a dedicated cloud support engineer, or maybe you might be a cloud support engineer helping like many different customers. It sort of, like depends on the team that you're in. And also depends on like if you're specialized in helping customers fix a certain service, or the security services, or the AI services. But pretty much, day to day, it's a very customer focused role, I would say. Pretty transactional though. It's less about building relationships with the customers over time, whereas some consultant roles will be more focused on that. This is definitely just like, hey, how are you doing? What sort of issues are you facing? And then trying to help them debug and troubleshoot and identify potential root causes. So that's what I would say. Sometimes people like to compare it with like a typical IT support job, but it's definitely a lot more than that. But you can initially start by thinking of it as it's kind of like tech support. But as a cloud support engineer, it's not just helping them with the initial issues. It's always just helping them solve more complex problems that they may have. One example I could give is that, let's say a server that's running on AWS is overloaded. you would contact a cloud support engineer because you're like, oh, my website isn't loading now, or it's taking my customers 5 minutes to load my page. And they can come in, they can go into your environment and they can fix it up. They can like add more servers, do that, something like that. Or like they ask you, would you rather go with option A or B? And they can fix it within a few minutes. So I think it's a great entry-level job because you can learn a lot on the job. Like they don't expect you to know how to solve every problem, but the more problems you encounter, you sort of have that sort of skill set built up over time.
And you spoke about the idea that I could work in sales in cloud, or I could work in a technical role. It sounds like that's almost could be a stepping stone into either way. If you're not quite sure, having that customer contact as well as the technical aspect of the role could be a great way of hedging your bets.
Yeah, exactly. With this role, like from Amazon's perspective, like AWS, there's actually pathways internally to help these cloud support engineers then transition into roles like solutions architect and cloud architect, especially after understanding all these like technical issues and stuff. It's like the next step would be, instead of helping them with immediate problems, help them identify business opportunities and things that they can do to even bring more value into like for the customer. So yeah, it's definitely, as you said, a stepping stone for different roles.
That's probably a great segue into the next job that you mentioned, which is being a solution architect.
Yeah, so solutions architect. I was a solutions architect at AWS for 2 years, and the way people describe it is that they're a technical advisor for customers as they go along their journey of using the cloud. So as a technical advisor, you'll sort of be that subject matter expert on the cloud as a whole, and customers would then be like, hey, I have these servers running in the company's garage or something like that, and I want to move them to the cloud. Can you help me out? Or those are more the traditional use cases. Like people these days, a lot of them just start off using AWS. Like startups aren't going to buy physical servers. They might just spin up an instance on Azure or AWS or Google Cloud. So a lot of the common use case is, okay, we want to start on the cloud. What services should we use? And so the solutions architect, it's a role where you sort of come up with like the blueprint for the customer, like sort of like a high level idea. So one thing that I did a lot was create architectural diagrams. So once I listen to the customer and hear about like what they would like to build, and I asked them a lot of follow-up questions, I would then come up with like a diagram where it's like an Amazon S3 bucket here, and then like a EC2 server here, and then I link it with arrows, and like I just show them like, okay, your data will go here and then goes to here, kind of like a bit of a map for them, a diagram, so that they can use that as a guide to then build it out. And like the solutions architect doesn't actually build the solution out for them. They just create that initial high level architecture. We might I also did things like create technical demos and presentations just to show them like an MVP or like a very initial prototype of like what this would look like on the cloud. But it's up to the customer to decide how they want to proceed. Which actually brings me onto that cloud architect role that I was saying, because customers can either they have 3 options. One, they can hire in-house developers or get the initial their team to build it out once the solutions architects come up with the roadmap and the blueprint. Another option is to hire an external consulting company, like the Deloitte's, PwC, Accentures of the world, and they can then work with them to help them build things onto the cloud. There's like a lot of AWS partners and cloud partners that they can work with. Or if the company's bigger, if they're an enterprise or maybe a public sector organization, they can then request AWS or Microsoft like in-house for them to then do the actual implementation. So when I talk about the cloud architect role, it's sort of like, different companies have a different naming, but it's sort of that role where you're doing the hands-on implementation. You have that blueprint created by the solutions architect, and now you're the ones actually, configuring the EC2 instances, that S3 bucket, and doing the actual connections in the backend, following that statement of work that you're given. So yeah, I kind of just covered both roles in one, but I would say it's sort of like connected, like one after the other. within the
Yeah.
customer journey.
So the solutions architect, you're that first contact, first blueprint. The cloud architect, you're really diving into the next layer of how do we actually make this happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Brilliant. And so cloud computing, it's an exciting place to work. As an early career person, I might be thinking, should I work as a developer? Should I work in cloud? Should I go to cyber? Do you have any ideas on benchmarks of things like how do salaries compare in cloud compared to going to work as a developer or going to work in cybersecurity?
I think tech salaries honestly are all quite high, depending, compared to a lot of other industries. So salary is definitely something that wouldn't be too much of an incremental change. I think initially, I think with grad roles, honestly, what I've seen is that most of them are like 6-figure salary. They start off, base salary 100K, and it's as you progress to different roles, or as you progress later on in your career, where there's a bigger salary gap between the different roles. I think developer roles definitely, I realize they pay more than the solutions architect roles, or maybe roles in HR marketing, within the cloud space or within the tech space in general. Developers are usually higher paid, but I would say as well, it depends in the future, whether you want to go into a managerial position, or if you start off in the cloud and you really niche down into a particular highly sought after skill set. Because I think at the end of the day, the salary is honestly a reflection of how sought after your skill set is. If there's a lot of demand for a particular role and you really fit that requirement, and companies are trying to hire for that, you can jump around, you can negotiate your salary, and in the end you can get something a really high salary. But I would say, yeah, just for people earlier in their career, it's better to just think, okay, tech salaries are all going to pay pretty high. It's more just which one am I most passionate about? Which one do I want to give a go at? Yeah, and usually the general advice is don't stay in a company for 10 plus years, because then you kind of get the lowest band of salary every year. Better to jump every 2-3 years. And also it's just better for learning as well. You get a whole different tech stack, or you get a whole new team and company culture as well. So that's just my general thoughts on the salary.
So when I'm planning my career in tech, don't over optimize for, I think this role will have a slightly higher salary than that role. Focus on, what am I good at? What do I love? What can I become the expert in?
Exactly. Yeah. A 20K, 10K difference. Don't let that be the kind of the deciding factor of the career. Yeah.
At the start of this conversation, I asked you a really common interview question. Tell me about yourself. What should early career people be preparing themselves for when they're thinking about interviewing for grad roles?
Oh, you mean in terms of answering that question, or just in general?
More generally, I suppose, if I've got an interview next week, what do you think I should prepare for?
Yeah, I mean, definitely that question. Tell me a bit about yourself.
And how do you approach answering that?
Oh, I was reflecting on how I answered the question when you first asked me. I don't think I did a super good job answering it if it was in an interview setting, because I only talked about my career journey and just the career side, what I'm doing now. What I would add to that answer would be my interests, my hobbies, what I like to do outside of work, even just briefly, 1 or 2 sentences, because that really helps form a deeper bond between the interviewer and the interviewee. And maybe there'll be parts that they actually resonate with, so that it just brings you out from just a candidate to actually someone who has your own interests and passions and hobbies. I could have talked more about what I did in university, maybe what I do now, more specifically as a YouTuber. So it's kind of hard, sometimes of you want to keep your answers short and concise, but also you want to cover all these aspects. So I think just career advice in general would be preparation for interviews is important. Have your answers prepared. It's hard to predict what questions might be asked, but this question will definitely be asked. Tell me a bit about yourself. So create this 60-second elevator pitch for yourself and tailor it depending on the company you apply for, and also who's interviewing you, whether that's the company CEO or a software engineer, kind of tailoring your answer based on that. Also, I think with anything, it's a numbers game. it can be so disheartening to apply for two jobs and like hear back from one and then not pass the interview for that one. But think about it if you're like really investing time and treating this as a numbers game, right? Like, and then so you're like applying for 100 jobs, maybe 20 companies get back, and then you end up interviewing for 10. Like, that would make you feel a lot better about yourself. And then, like, after every interview, you can then use that experience to then improve on the next one. Interviewing is a skill, applying for jobs is a skill. So that's something I would say. Another part is just in today's world, personal branding is really important. I think it's interesting that in Australia, I think sometimes like compared to the US, a lot of people aren't as active on social media yet. I know like we don't have as big of a Twitter presence, for example, compared to like US and Canada. But I think as a student though, because there's less people in Australia posting on LinkedIn and creating that brand for themselves, there's so much more opportunity to do so. And if you can do that, it would really help you stand out. So one thing I did was in my final year of the final years, like third year of university, I started posting on LinkedIn. Not really sharing things as a subject matter expert or anything, but just being like, hey, this is my Amazon internships, like 3 months, I was 3 months into my Amazon internship. Here are 5 lessons. And then, for upcoming interns, hopefully that advice will then resonate with them. And then, slowly you don't just build up a network of peers, but also you can get noticed by recruiters and like maybe even like startup founders and things like that, people like that. So then you sort of like grow a network in that way as well. I mean, I think there's so much advice that I could share to my younger self, but I think the main ones are personal branding, preparation when it comes to interviews and resume, like really taking it seriously. And also number 3, like treating it as a numbers game. Like you could be doing a really good job, but then you just have to spread out your luck in a way, like, so that you can increase how many opportunities you might receive.
Start with the assumption that maybe 80% of the jobs that I apply to, I won't even hear back from. And that will start to get you to the point of knowing it's a numbers game. I really love at the start, you also mentioned this idea of putting some things into your elevator pitch that might help to connect you with the interviewer. This idea that an interview is not just you rattling off all of your list of qualifications, but actually you're trying to build a connection with that person. How do you think about that?
I think it comes with practice. Yeah, because it's easy to receive that advice. Like, okay, I need to be personable during my interview, but it's so easy to just freeze up and be like, okay, what are the things I need to cover in my elevator pitch? Like checking the boxes. I think my general thoughts is just like have that in mind all the time, but also just relax, take a deep breath, and just practice a lot. And it's sometimes, like a lot of candidates, it's not just the people who end up getting hired isn't the one with like the most skills on their resume or like the most talented, the smartest. It's just the ones who the employer thinks, okay, like they could be someone really nice and easy to work with, and they can be a fast learner. I mean, especially because even for technical roles, half of it would be the technical coding assignment and like the skills assessment, but then the other half is even just like company culture questions, questions about your soft skills, like previous interactions with customers. So I think it's just trying to be personable, trying to like smile and like act relaxed, even though it's hard. But that's just kind of my thoughts on that. Like it doesn't like don't beat yourself up on that if initially you feel like it's a bit awkward doing that. It's definitely a skill you can improve over time.
And knowing that hiring manager probably had to take a day out to sit through these interviews. So if you can make their life a little bit fun or make it an enjoyable conversation, they're probably more likely to hire you, right?
Yeah.
You talked about starting your YouTube channel from 0 subscribers. That's a bit of a numbers game too. And it could be a lonely journey kind of working for yourself as a content creator. How did you build up the motivation and the discipline to make enough videos that you started seeing success?
Well, I think it was actually it might be easier than other people think, because like let's say like to get to from 0 to 150K subscribers, it's like wow, like you suddenly have to kind of make that jump. But initially it was like quite gradual. But then also it's just this like psychological thing. Let me try to explain it just for fun. But to get from 0 to 100 subscribers, you know, it was a big milestone for me. I was like, oh wow, my first 100 subscribers, 100 people decide to watch my content. I mean, now if it's like my subscriber count jumps from 150,000 to 151,000, 1,000 more subscribers, it's going to feel like nothing. So it's like, I think it's good that psychologically, when you're early on, you celebrate the smallest wins, like 100 subscribers, 200, 1,000, you know, first 10 videos published, or like first video to reach certain number of views. Like, it's actually quite motivating at the start. It's fun and exciting, especially if you feel like YouTube is something that you want to do more long term. But it's like never really just. It's good to use others as inspiration. Be like, I saw bigger YouTubers. I was like, wow, I want to be like them one day. I want to make some content similar to them, but never kind of compare with them and be like, wow, I would, you know, never reach that or see that as like something to be like discouraged by. So yeah, I think, I mean, could you clarify the initial question again? I think I got into a bit of a tangent.
No, definitely. I think you've really covered it. Really, this idea of how do you stay motivated to be making content even when at the start maybe you're not seeing the traction that you were imagining. But what I'm hearing is at the start, every little bit of traction is motivating to you. And so as long as you see yourself progressing and you're not sitting there thinking, well, why don't I have 150,000 subscribers yet?
Yeah,
it's kind of okay.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the only other thing I would add on is kind of like focus on consistency. It's like, for me, I knew realistically I could only post one video a month because I was working, especially ramping up in my new job. I was doing certifications, additional trainings. And so just having the consistency, like not pressuring myself into being like, oh, other YouTubers make one video a week, I'm going to do that. I just did what worked for me. I just did one video a month, but I made sure I was consistent, and every video I was posting was of value to my audience. So instead of kind of fixating on the numbers, just fixate on your upload schedule and like try to make every video as good as possible. Because the good thing with YouTube is that sometimes, I mean, I would post a video and then like 6 months later, especially initially when I didn't have much of an audience, 6 months later, that video suddenly gets picked up by the YouTube algorithm, and then so many people start seeing it. So then it's like, you never know, just kind of focus more on kind of making your videos higher quality. Yeah.
And kind of like the job search, focus on the inputs, not the outputs. Focus on
exactly
once a month or 100 applications.
It's all connected. Yeah, it's all connected.
At some point you decided, I'm going to quit my full-time job. YouTube is keeping me busy enough, and this is where I see my career going. What was that decision like?
Yeah, I think initially it was daunting because I didn't really have much of a community of people who are doing the same thing. Most of my friends still now, they're working 9-to-5 jobs. I am really lucky now that I have some YouTuber friends, and we have like some monthly meetups. And like when I went to the US recently, I was able to connect with some YouTubers in person. I think, yeah, like it was scary for me because I quit at a time, I'm someone who tends to like to take risks. So I quit at a time where I didn't get like all the data points of like, this is definitely going to work from like a growth standpoint, monetary standpoint, and so on. But I just had a feeling I was going to be okay. But I guess it depends on the person. Like if I was someone who was more carefully planning, I think waiting 3 more months before I quit would have given me enough validation that it could be a sustainable business model. But as I was saying, like it can be sometimes like a bit isolating or lonely, where you feel like initially I had to always feel like I was trying to almost tell people, yeah, like YouTube is a great career. Like, you know, I'm really enjoying it. Like I feel like I had to justify to people because people didn't really understand what it was like to be a YouTuber. And I think it's less so now because like now I have this community of people who like really understand me. They really understand the struggles of what it's like, and just like a lot of what people don't see behind the scenes. And also, I would say, just like a side note, like with YouTube, I see it as this like initial starting point where I have this like audience where I'm making these regular videos for them, like hopefully like weekly or monthly videos. But then it's sort of expanding more towards things like courses, and also digital products, so that people, like they can watch the videos initially, but then purchase like a course to then dive deeper, because not everything can just be uploaded on YouTube. It's sometimes I want to have like a Discord community where I can chat with people more and like give them further guidance. So I see myself less as like a YouTuber or like an influencer. It's more like a educator, and like hopefully, in the future starting like a more like edtech business around something, in the cloud, helping people upskill.
That's really exciting, Lucy.
Yeah, I'm excited.
How do you, as a full-time, I suppose, creator, how do you stay connected to the latest technical updates? How do you keep your technical chops?
That's something I had to consciously do, because when I worked at AWS, you get emails all the time on the latest product updates. During lunch, people will talk about it. They'll be like, "Oh, did you see this service got released?" And things like that. Like we talk about other stuff during lunch as well, but like it's just a lot of things you just hear, and because you're just so immersed in the tech world, like when you're working there. Since I'm like more withdrawn from it now, like doing my own thing with YouTube, I have to be more conscious of trying to read up on articles, trying to have the motivation to then try new tools. Because as a solutions architect back then, I had to keep up to date with all of the AWS services, because customers, if they're interested in learning about it, then they will have to ask me, and I would have already had to learn it beforehand and give it a go myself. But now there's less of an incentive, because I'm like, okay, I just have to learn this, and then maybe I'll never end up applying it. So then what I do actually is that every time I learn something, I want to try teach it on my YouTube channel. So initially I was like, when ChatGPT first came out, like everyone was playing around with it. I made a video called How to Learn AWS Cloud Using ChatGPT. So I was trying to upskill on like the prompt engineering side, so that I could then make a video to help people create better prompts when going about their cloud learning journey and using ChatGPT to help. But yeah, so like, in summary, it's just like mix of like trying to keep up with like news articles. I also have this like weekly cloud and AI newsletter that I write up. And one of the sections is just like a latest AI news. So that every week I have to find like an AI news piece and then put it in there. So that helps me with learning as well. So it goes back to the idea of like learning something and then trying to teach it in some sort of way.
So writing your newsletter, Cloud Bites, being forced to make a YouTube video on something will push you to learn it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
What advice would you have for early career folks or technical people listening to us who are thinking, hey, I really like what Lucy's done. I'd love to follow in her footsteps?
So work in tech for 2 years and then quit to be a YouTuber, right?
Sure.
Yeah. I think, I don't know. I think I sort of realized that I wanted to work in tech because it was like fun and dynamic and exciting, but then realized later on that I wanted to build something on my own. Whether it would have been through YouTube or something else, I really wanted to be self-employed and work towards my own vision. But I would say, like, I would recommend to people definitely start off working for someone else, whether that be in corporate or working for like a startup, but like trying to build your skills initially, and then alongside that, kind of having your kind of like project or like whatever you want to do full time as like as a project or like a side hustle, and working on that on the weekends or in your own time. And then when you're ready to make that switch, you can then make the switch towards doing that full time. And I think it's just like you just have to know yourself and the amount of risk that you're able to tolerate or the amount of skills you want to build before moving on to being a YouTuber or being self-employed. Like, I think for me, 2 years was enough to feel like, okay, I get a general gist of what it's like working in tech and corporate, and now I want to move on and be on the other side. But for some people, it's like they want to work like 10 years first and then build their own startup. It's like there's no right or wrong answer to this. But I mean, I would think that like it's better just to like, whether that be through like an internship or like through a grad role, just get a taste of what it's like working for someone else and building skills that way. And also, I think it could be a faster way to build out your network as well. But then again, yeah, there's no right or wrong answer. That's just kind of my perspective and what's worked well for me. I mean, I also have this like course coming out in a few months, hopefully 2 months, on how to become a part-time tech career YouTuber, which is like someone who works in tech and has a YouTube channel part-time. So there's this course where I go through anything from how to grow a channel, how sponsorships work, like things like how to optimize a video and so on. So that's something, just kind of packaging up what I've learned over the past few years into a course.
If someone wants to follow in your footsteps, they can take the course. What was it about working in corporate that made you really decide, hey, I want to work for myself?
Yeah, it was actually like, I actually liked corporate, surprisingly, like, because usually people would have the story of like, oh, I hated corporate, I really wanted to work for myself, and so on. They use that as motivation. I really enjoyed how I was working towards something bigger than myself with people, with friends, and then sort of going through that shared struggle. It almost feels like a different version of university. Like, you have like a computer science assignment or whatever assignment, and you're like struggling with your peers and like seeking help from like the tutors or like the managers, and then like getting a reward that way. And then you don't really get marks for work. You just get promotions, but also like salary increases. But I would say it just reminded me a lot of university. But then what made me want to be self-employed is that I wanted more of a challenge, I think. I knew that in tech, there was a very stable and linear path for me. I mean, no career is really truly linear, but I could see a path forming of being a solutions architect, senior solutions architect, maybe solutions architect manager, or becoming like a principal solutions architect, and then afterwards being like some head of technology, CTO role, if it ended up that way. But then I just thought being self-employed and having a YouTube channel was just so exciting to me. Like, there was no path. Like, you just have to make your own path. And you see like so many different people like doing different things. I guess like some perks of being self-employed as a YouTuber is that you can work from anywhere. So I can just bring my laptop and like work somewhere else for the week and still be able to publish out a video. I just need like a blank wall or something like decorated to then film. And yeah, there's quite a few perks, I think. And also it's like with YouTube, it's more like earning based off the impact that you can provide rather than based off of an hourly rate. So there's just quite a few differences, but I think the main thing was I wanted a challenge, especially early on in my career. I knew this was something where I could do it for a few years. If it fails, then I can always go back to a job.
You're really motivated by impact, by a bit of risk taking, by the opportunity to kind of forge your own path.
Yeah, and self-improvement is something I really value. Just and that's something I think it's like when you get out of your comfort zone, you challenge yourself, your comfort zone really just expands over time.
Yeah. So it sounds like starting to build more digital products is the next expansion of your comfort zone.
Yeah, I have a team right now. I have 2 interns that I'm working with, and we're like sort of trying to build out these courses. Yeah.
Fantastic. What do you see? You're obviously looking deeply into the changes that are happening in the industry. What technical skills do you see being in future demand? Where should students try to specialize, do you think?
I'm gonna be general and say AI, but yeah, this I think AI is the biggest disruptor right now, as everyone has seen. But it's not just about like learning about AI, but like learning how to use it, like learning how to use it to make your studying, your work more efficient. And I think at the end of the day, like it's going to increase the efficiency of many industries, like almost exponentially. So just keeping up to date with that, I think going a step further than what most people know about AI would really help you stand out, because I think most people around the world now have used ChatGPT and probably use it a lot, like on like a weekly basis. A lot of students probably writing assignments using ChatGPT, like essays and stuff. But you can go a step deeper and be like, what is the ChatGPT API? Like, what is RAG application? What are RAG applications? Just trying to figure out the behind the scenes. That could be a valuable skill for later on, and almost maybe in the future that could be like a prerequisite for many jobs.
So as a student, maybe building a couple of side projects that do use the OpenAI API or something similar, building a couple of Gen AI projects might help.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, because it's building projects is quite important. You can just read and study up all you want, but then or like get certified, but then if you don't actually apply it, it's really easy to forget about it. And like building projects increases your confidence, and it shows tangible things that you've actually created. And it helps.
You can point to that. It's on my
You can point to
GitHub.
it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Brilliant. Lucy, what excites you about the future?
That's a big question. I'm excited about a lot of things about the future. I'm excited how we don't know what the future is, I guess. That's a broad answer, but like the fact that there's honestly infinite possibilities, not just on a macro scale of we don't know what the future holds for society, but also just like it's exciting that you can sort of create your own path in life. And like every path that you take, every decision you make, it could lead to new opportunities. And so it's like things can also compound for the future as well. It's like if you get this certification, then maybe you can apply to this job, and then you meet this person who then introduces you to this person. It's just, I think the infinite possibilities of the future excite me. But I want to point out, it's like more like a bunch of things are out of your control in the future. Like you can't control society, but you can control as well, like who you are in your future.
You decide how you navigate uncertainty.
Yep.
Lucy, how can listeners keep in touch with everything amazing that you're doing?
So my YouTube channel is the main one, Tech with Lucy on YouTube. I'm also trying to post more on LinkedIn, so you can follow me on LinkedIn at Lucy Wang. Twitter, Tech with Lucy handle as well. But I would say just you can follow me on LinkedIn and YouTube. That's where I usually post regular content about cloud and AI.
Brilliant. And if they want to subscribe to your newsletter?
Oh yeah, that one as well. So it's called cloudbytes.ai, weekly email newsletter.
Fantastic. Lucy, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on Programmable.
Yeah, thank you. This has been really fun.
You've been listening to Programmable, a podcast by JDoodle, the AI coding suite for learning and building together. Try coding for free at jdoodle.com. You can subscribe to Programmable on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.